Great. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our September meeting of the Construction Advisory Committee. We're going to get started now. We know there's a number of people who are coming late, but you all are here, so we really want to get started. So our objectives today, we have a couple of different data presentations and some updates. So our big focus is on updated cost and debt exclusion analysis. So we're going to get a presentation from Rich on that. And then we are going to, we can talk a little bit about the operation and maintenance costs for the different options. You were sent some information and some updates on that came late before we started the meeting, but we can talk through those, both on the DPW operations and maintenance side and the SPS personnel side. And then we'll hear an update on the community survey and focus group process. And then for the final portion of the meeting, we're going to talk about options and evaluation of those options. We're going to do a little exercise to go into small groups and talk about preferred options and the criteria and share sort of where we are with each other on all of that. We'll have an opportunity for public comment should we have members of the public who are here and want to comment, and we'll finish by 8:30. So that's our agenda. Any questions about the agenda? Okay, so let's launch straight in. Rich, and let me just hand this over to you. I'm going to give you this little mic. So you can hear by our listening audience later. That's the wrong one. That's one. I get this one. Yes.
Lovely. All right, we've got some handouts. I'll pass these around. You can pass them that way and pass them this way. All right, so I think most folks remember sort of where we were with the CAG capacity study, right? We had some building concepts, some numbers with it. Then we went into the MSBA eligibility phase. MSBA gave us much higher enrollment numbers than what we were anticipating. So we kind of have this disconnect between what those building massings were and what we could potentially fund under the MSBA. As part of the next steps in the MSBA, we're still in the forming of the project team. Actually, we're shortlisting the 6 respondents tomorrow and interviewing the top tiered, top selected group on September 25th. Which means that by the time we're formally going through the process and have updated plans and updated costs, it'll be past the point at which we expect the CAG to be giving its recommendation. So we kind of wanted to close the gap between where we want to be on the estimates and where we are. So we brought together the old project team from the CAG capacity study to update it. And really, what are the differences here? The biggest part is the building size and the enrollment. Whereas at the CAG capacity study, we were projecting a combined population of 578. The MSBA number is 925, so basically a 60% larger building. So it's a significant difference. If you hold the Brown capacity constant at 250 students, that then implies that the Winter Hill only would go from 400 to potentially 675, and that's a 70% difference, so a much bigger building there. The other thing that we didn't have in the CAG capacity study with some of the associated scope to get us to full completion. We didn't have any numbers assigned to temporary classrooms for the Brown that would be needed for Brown. We also were mute on the Article 97 land swap for Trum Field construction. And so we looked at Sycamore Street, even though we would have to do a lot of grading because of the way that the Sycamore is on a hill. A softball field would fit there, and the land area is equal. So, again, not 100% saying that it would have to go to Sycamore Street. We'd look at other locations, but for cost purposes, we put together a cost estimate to build the softball field at Sycamore. The last thing that we needed to update was our construction costs. Construction costs continue to escalate far faster than pretty much anything else in the economy. And our numbers were from like 2021 and 23 respectively, so we wanted to update those for the latest. Thank you. Just in terms of glossary or vocabulary, when I refer to an option, that's the physical building layout. So we've got the one building option, we've got the two building option, and all the required elements that would go into making that a reality. When I talk about a scenario, that's putting those building options on a timetable so that we can take a look at different sequencing of those that will then give us a cash flow that can then give us the debt service. So I'm an engineer, so everything always has to be fit for purpose. The purpose of these things, of doing this, is to give the CAG the likely estimate of the magnitude of the debt service based on our current understanding of the options and the relative differences in the debt exclusions for those different scenarios. I will point out that what we have here at the conclusion is just the total debt service for the city. In order to percolate that down and make estimates of what a typical two-family house would do, what a typical three-family, we need to revise the overall valuation of the city. That is happening now. It's underway. That also won't be done in time. So we just sort of have the grand totals rather than the household bills. But we do have the numbers, the grand totals from the high school, so we can compare that to the magnitude of the high school. And so now, if that wasn't enough of a caveat, it's going to really start to feel like all the side effects on your medication. We've got the disclaimers on top of that. That these are the construction cost estimates will definitely change as we go through the MSBA process. This is just based on the CAG capacity study elements. The cost estimates are going to change. And the financial calculations that give us the debt service will change. We've taken a snapshot in time from right now. So those things are going to change. And really what we're just trying to give is our best understanding of what these numbers are as of today, in September 25. This no one should hold on to this in 3 years and say, oh, this is the debt exclusion number, because it's going to change. So first we start off with the construction cost updates, and we'll go through the two building options first. Option 1 is the Winter Hill at Sycamore for 675 students, and option 1A is the Brown at Willow for 250. So this is, if you go back to the capacity study, this would look familiar. We had this for the smaller enrollment. We simply scaled it up for the larger population. And essentially what it did was it added a story to the building. We had a 4-story building here before. It now goes to a 5-story building. Essentially pretty much the same footprint as the existing building and preserving most of the playground and open space as it currently exists. We do kind of toe in by a few dozen feet, but it's not.
When you say preserve, is that going to have to be taken down?
Oh, it will absolutely be completely reconstructed, because all of that area will be used for construction laydown and all that. So everything you see will get ripped up and replaced, but in terms of the ultimate footprint, what you kind of see as the open space will remain open space. The brown on the next slide remains unchanged. It's the renovation of the existing building plus the addition for the cafeteria and the gym. That also gives us the elevator stack that gives us ADA access to the other floors of the building. So again, we went back to the architects that helped us on the K-8. They had a cost estimator, professional cost estimator, and we updated those numbers. So again, the big caveat here that we have to screen, you can go to the next one, and the next one is that these are the costs as we currently understand them. These costs are going to change again, but what it comes to is so the two-part project, $166 million for the Winter Hill at Sycamore, 94 for the Brown at Willow, which gives us a total project cost of $261 million.
Is that 48% set in stone now, or is that something that's going to evolve within it?
Oh, yeah, very good question. So I sort of jumped down to the bottom line. We got the construction cost estimate from our estimator. For all of our capital projects, we always build in contingency and soft costs. Those are our straight numbers that we use for all projects. For right now, again, in the absence of knowing anything else, I use 48% for the reimbursement rate for the MSBA because that's essentially what we got on the high school. It was 48.6 or something like that. But I just assumed the same number across the board. We could be a little bit higher, we could be a little bit lower, but again,
that's a ballpark of what we would expect with this project.
I don't think our demographics have changed substantially, or
And our formula hasn't changed at all, so it's not like they would pay for this, they didn't pay for the high school.
yeah, and there was a bunch of stuff in this building that they didn't pay for, like the fields, a lot of the stuff, the field house. There were a lot of excluded costs. So again, not until we actually get into design.
The escape house is designed for open space suburban districts.
Yeah, that's not.
Right.
No, but I think it's more of a question. I think the formula, because I know we had talked last time they changed some of the ways they were approaching certain types of projects, like the way the East was rebuilt was not like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
If that's a relatively standard thing.
The formula, in no major way, okay, I'm nowhere near an expert to say they haven't changed the formula at all, but in no major way have they changed the formula.
Yeah, yeah.
And in here, we're assuming we're not going back to the MSBA for Brown.
Okay, well, so we're going to get into that when we get to the scenarios. I just took the upfront snapshot
Yeah,
here.
this is the known numbers we have, because that's not a guarantee.
For construction, yeah.
Also, just as a minor, just for purity of messaging, can we say that the Browns are going to need 250 seats? Like, what the K5 model, whatever that is ultimately on the school committee decision. But the plan would be that we still have 250 seats at the Browns or whatever.
Correct, yeah.
You could move programming there.
Right.
We
could do any number of
because of the classrooms and the rest of the building, that would serve 250 students.
Right. That's not
250 gen ed students.
Yeah, let's not promise the community things that haven't been decided.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not presupposing.
Do you mind going back? Because I cannot read.
Me either.
I'm reading glasses. Can you show me the gross square footage for the Winter Hill
This one?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, even with my reading glasses, I can pick that wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
$1,000.
Yeah. And we did go back and forth with the architect and the cost estimator, and I'm feeling as confident as I can in any numbers. These are I think reflecting the situation. So we can jump to the one building options, which are sort of two. There's option 3, which is the combined at Sycamore, and there's option 4, which is the combined at Trum, which also necessitates 4A, which is the land swap at Sycamore.
So, sorry, in your numbering then, because you had 1 and 1A, you just get 2. Is that on purpose?
2. So this goes back to the KA capacity study,
Oh, I see.
and 2 I think was like a super unpopular one, like putting the Brown at the
So you
Kennedy.
just keep it the same. You keep it
Yeah.
the same numbers from there.
From the KA capacity study. So for putting the one building, the 925 students at Sycamore, we did look at two options. This first one is keeping the 5-story, but because you've got the higher enrollment, you've got to go into the play area, so you have less open space. And then on the next slide, we also looked at going to 6 stories, which keeps the footprint smaller, which preserves the open space. In terms of the cost estimates for them, they came in like really close, like within 2%. So the longer building versus the taller building was about 2%. For me, that's within the margin of error. So we just sort of carried forward the larger of the two numbers.
And if I understand the Sycamore Street correctly, just in terms of like impact on the neighborhood and stuff like that, when we say 6 stories, when you're at sort of Evergreen Avenue, that's effectively 4 stories? Because of the story.
Yes, yeah, because,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, and I've seen this come up with
Yeah.
people in that neighborhood.
People
It's like,
don't think it's 5, people don't realize it's already 5 stories.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
No, it's a story higher than 6 stories, it's a story higher than its current height.
yep.
Okay. So when you run the numbers on that, again, the same assumptions in terms of contingency and soft costs and reimbursement rate, it comes to $194 million for the Sycamore Street option. Moving over to the Trunk Field option, the same sort of thing where I think we were for, we're at a 5-story here, a little bit larger footprint, not considerably. The part B, or the part A of this is on the next slide, is the layout of the softball field. And again, this would sort of be almost like tiered field, but the softball field does fit in there with some significant civil work to get that.
And for that model, would that preclude a lot of the current open playground space there in order to fit in the softball field?
Well, not really, because like the playground, this part of it is actually larger than what the playground is.
Okay.
So it's just flopping it. The only way you can get the diamond in is up there. So it would almost be like a swap.
Just
Yeah.
neighborhood use.
Yeah.
Some good angles inside the field.
Yeah. Well, you could keep.
Contingency for broken windows.
Yeah. We can pelt the old convent.
You remember getting that playground in there with the neighbors? Like, I'm not looking forward to having to tell someone putting a softball field there, given how upset they were over a playground.
I mean, the summary of this is that it's $1,000 per foot. So whether if it's more, if it's bigger, it's still $1,000.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of works out that way. And so then the total cost of that when you do the building itself plus the field replacement, $204 million. So with those as sort of our input costs, and all of those costs are, I should have mentioned this off the top of my head. So we escalated to either 2029 or 2030, so that we're out at the midpoint of construction. Yeah, 2030. Yeah, there you go.
Wait, sorry, does MSBA reimburse for the field replacement?
They may not. So it's a very good point. For the I don't know why we did not do it both ways, but I meant to highlight that point. This number might be optimistic in terms of the local share because it did have the reimbursement for that, which it may not be reimbursed. So it could be 214
And
or
I think
215.
I follow this up with some emails, but just for everybody's benefit, if I understand Article 97 correctly, which is really unlikely to be true,
If you do the first ever.
Including the people at the State House.
we have to replace that within 3 years of some date. Like, what is the timeline that would have to be completed by legal?
We have not been able to arrive at a dead number because every time we ask the question, it's like, oh, it depends.
Right.
But essentially, I think we would do it simultaneously. So I'm assuming that the cash flow would happen at the same
So it
time.
almost definitely, and and I think the other question I have is because this is a legal requirement, is there any risk factor in terms of lawsuits and stuff like that, in terms of how we handle that? Like,
It does remain an open risk, for sure, yeah. If
Especially
the,
since the law is there.
Yes.
Yeah.
As soon as we upset somebody and
yeah.
this is Somerville, we'll upset somebody.
we'll upset
Yeah.
somebody and
Yeah. So
there is precedent.
Yeah.
these are all excellent points, and I think there's a lot of risk tied up in that option.
And then for also, again, I know I asked this in the email for everybody, but has the city of Somerville ever executed an Article 97 landslide?
We have not,
Yeah, we've asked for it plenty of times and never done it.
yeah.
It's important to keep in mind.
All right, so those are the options. We'll now go into the scenarios, which again is like putting them out over time. So we wanted to run a few different scenarios to kind of almost sort of bookend some thinking. Not saying that any of these timetables would be exact, but at least for the sake of exploration. The first set of three are all the 2 building options. Winter Hill at Sycamore, Brown at Willow. The first one in terms of timing, even though as we've sort of already talked, is very unlikely in our capability to run 2 huge construction projects at the same time. Scenario A is to just do them both simultaneously. We've got 2 building projects happening, and both of them, the doors open in 2031. Scenario B does a finish to start. So we run Winter Hill first. As soon as Winter Hill is done, start up Brown construction. And both A and B have no MSBA funding for the Brown. Option C is another speculative one. Not even sure if the MSBA would entertain it, given where we currently are. But we said, well, what if we finished Winter Hill and then submitted for Brown, acknowledging that we'd likely be at the back of the queue and it would take a few years. So I built in like a 4-year lag to then build the Brown, but apply a 48% to it. So it pushes it out in the future, but we get the MSBA just for sake of examination. And that opens the doors to the Brown in 39. It's really starting to make me feel old.
But in that scenario, though, like construction costs may have escalated 48%.
Correct. So the other
Every year you wait, the price goes up.
yeah. So
They
even
don't have the money, but
yeah, and even with scenario B, we escalate the Brown because it's not going to be 2030 midpoint of construction. It'll be like 2036 midpoint of construction.
and
something
B
like that.
could move around however.
Correct.
But that's it.
But we wanted to play that sort of financial game with escalation versus.
But this is also is, like, I know groups like asking, and some civil rights groups are looking at trying to get MSBA reformed. I've even heard the term lawsuit thrown around. So it's also possible that costs go the other way, because we get an MSBA that actually cares about the schools. I wouldn't hold my breath, but it's a possibility.
I don't think we should predict anything about 2035.
I don't usually do it for 2030. Like, I have to predict 2026 right now.
So then the one building ones are more straightforward. It's basically just those options starting now. So then that gets us into the debt service projections. And so this has been all along sort of a collaboration between IAM and finance. So this is the point at which we were done our engineering, and the cash flow analysis, handed that over to our friends in finance. So our last bond rate, again, we still have the AAA bond rating, which is very helpful for us. Melrose, Wakefield just lost their AAA, and their base points went up like 50 base points. Like, it makes a big deal. But our last bond rate was at 3.97, so we just assume that in the lack of anything else. So again, we've got our caveat, though that's going to change again too. So these numbers, take it with a grain of salt. But that leads us to, this is really where.
Oh yeah, no. the federal economic picture is so rosy right now that
Yeah.
everything's gonna be great.
Yeah. So so essentially, all of this has been the sort of build up to what these numbers are. And so that some of the interesting things, if you just go from A to B, right? As we said, when we project out the brown from the current to the future, we escalate that. Construction escalation has continued to outpace the general inflation rates. So by pushing brown out, the overall debt service actually increases by a few points. It does imply if we were to push brown out even more and we're successful with the MSBA grant, that would see a positive outcome for that. Interestingly, or I guess not interestingly, not surprisingly, if you look at D, which is combined at Sycamore, it comes out significantly less than combined at Trum because you've got that Article 97 construction cost offset. And once you factor in the financial terms, it's a fairly significant difference between those two projects.
And that number includes assuming that NSBA will pay for half of
Correct,
the-
which may,
So
which,
that-
$2 million.
Yeah,
so it could, like that,
Shocked.
yeah, so scenario E might even be even worse than it's showing up in this table. And then, again, because we haven't been able to do the full valuation and reflect what they are on household bills, we do have the high school debt service for comparison. And so that last column is compared to the high school. It's a one-to-one with itself. But round numbers, any one of these options is about double the household impact of what the high school was. And there is resolution within there.
Do we know what the average household impact was with the high school?
So I'm not allowed to say, but the typical two-family house was $209 per year. So if you wanted to do your own math in your head, Ed wouldn't let me do the math.
No.
Right? Yeah. So yes, that's in 200 per year for a typical two-family house.
That's how much the high school.
Correct.
So,
This is extra on top of what else? So the extra tax.
Yeah, so if you actually look at your tax bill, which I will admit that I don't, the mortgage company does that. But there are separate lines because it's the debt exclusion. There's your annual levy line, and then there's the line for the high school debt exclusion. So I think I'm a fairly typical two-family house, and so mine's like 209. I should find that out. Maybe I'm paying more.
Can I ask you a question about that? Is there a year at which the high school that still goes out for
30 years. 30 years starting last year, because that's when we went long-term and when it started hitting the bill. So there will be overlap between the high school and this, given where we're starting, for around number 20 years.
When so starting last year is the debt exclusion for this building. So the people household won't start paying the extra. Was 200, twice, 400, whatever. Until 2030. Right?
That's about, so
So there will
well,
be overlap, but it's not going to start now. It's
correct.
going to start eventually.
Yeah, I mean, the overlap will essentially start in 2031,
Okay. But
because it's when we go long-term.
I think even I work in construction and the numbers are like, I think that there will be sticker shock. Like we're paying for just a small population, double the
Yeah.
square foot than for the whole population, which is the high school. So,
Yeah.
it's a
Which reminds me of another thing that's sort of not sort of broken out on this table, because Ed and I were still working on this weekend. So all the separate scenarios, A, B, and C, that would actually be 2 debt exclusions. Because remember, we can't, because of the MSBA language, so this was just assuming, all right, well, we do 2 debt exclusions and they both pass. But in reality, it's, when you go to sell it, it'll be a little bit different.
What would you probably don't have this off the top of your head, what would be the aggregate debt service of just this, one of the Sycamore Street for the separate agencies?
It didn't occur to us until early this morning that we should have done it that way. We didn't do it that way.
It's about 2/3.
Yeah.
You could probably just use the ratio.
For
Yeah.
Sycamore here versus 194 for Sycamore combined, option D there, right? So it's,
Yeah.
Compared.
Or you could do the simple math on scenario A because Brown is not escalated on scenario A, but B and C gets complicated because Brown was escalated.
Rich, does scenario A include alternative facility for Brown
It
students?
does. It's baked in.
Where would that be?
Could you repeat that?
For the scenario A, what would it look like to construct the building?
So all we did was cost out modulars, mobilizing and renting modulars. We were mute as to the location. It might be on City Hall Plaza. It might be at Dilboy. It might be at Trum, for all I know. But we just costed out the unit without selecting a site.
And does scenario E take into account any, environmental risks? Like I know it's close to the DPW, and I've heard some people are concerned about that. Trump Field has its own history and stuff like that. Is that taken into account any of those aspects, or is this just construction?
So it is just construction, although we've got hazardous materials allocation in all of them, sort of equally. To be certain, we will encounter some gnarly stuff at Sycamore Street too, because that thing was built in the 1970s and they leveled like a school from the 1800s.
There's no question that hill is asbestos in it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like, let's just own that right now.
Yeah.
But every single one of these scenarios will involve a complete demolition of
Yeah.
Sycamore Street,
Right.
so that is
Yeah.
baked into this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. But what we encounter under Sycamore and what we encounter under Trum, or even in the Brown schoolyard, that still remains kind of a escalation risk, which is why we carry a 10% contingency above the line at this point. But that's what we got.
So I'm just gonna add 2 more things to throw in to further complicate the model. One, we do need that just for Sycamore, because the school committee could decide they want to do other things building wise, so we should have that data point. And the other thing to get in mind, as far as like the timeline of sticker shock, is, Kennedy and the next wave of schools probably start needing to be replacing around 2040.
Yeah.
The whole building, you mean?
Well, I'd say significant renovations.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already sort of piecemealing the mechanical systems. We just did the chiller at Kennedy. We're lining up for the chiller at the West and the boiler
If
at
our goal
the.
is to not ever have to do this again,
Yeah.
then we need to start making the next round of renovations and stuff around 2040.
But are you guys asking if what it is to do with Sycamore without Brown?
Well, that's one
Because
data
so
point.
if it's 165,000 gross square feet, then it's $165 million. And if it's 195,000 gross square feet, it's $195 million.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
We can back it out.
Yeah.
It's still gonna, it's in that range,
Right.
if we don't count Brown.
Brown. Yeah.
So then it's not apples to apples because then you're not comparing, right?
Yes.
Right.
Just like proving something.
But we can run the numbers so you have it. You don't have to do the math.
Right, and then, but I think the more important one is the timeline issue, because
Right.
other schools will eventually enter the things, and I'm told the city wants to do other buildings too at some point. I don't really care.
It would be nice if we had a functioning city government with, office space that respects our
I
work,
don't really
but.
care for my problem, but I'm told that's what I think about.
Sorry, but if we did the big building in Sycamore, we would not do Brown, because that would host 900 students. So where are these students? Like, we don't even.
Well, but I'm gonna use a hypothetical. Please do not take this as saying, Andre is saying the school committee is considering doing X, because I'm not. But there's always a conversation about, like, what if we had a middle school model? Right? There's a conversation that comes up all the time. What if we move from a K-8 model to a K-5? One of the things that comes up often is, what if Somerville had a middle school model instead of a K-8 model? Not saying that's something we're considering, but if we were to consider that, that would need to be fit into the building plan in some way, shape, or form, because there's not a place right now to have a middle school. And so one of the things to think about is, what are the options that leave flexibility for future school committees to make building decisions. I'm just using middle school example as one. Could be a future school committee wants to do a second language immersion program, or an arts program. Like, there are programming decisions that need to be made in the next 25, 30 years that the current timeline would make it really difficult to do.
So, there is a decision that would need to be made in the next 5 to 8 years. Does the school committee want to maintain a single K-5 school in the district?
That's also a decision that has to be made, yeah.
It,
Yeah, like these are real conversations that the budgets, and if we spend all the money right now, makes it possible to have.
but I think that needs to be, and I think this is what is missing, is that what the school committee wants to maintain right now, today?
I think now we have some budget numbers, I think it's a conversation the school committee should have, yeah. Because on one level, it's a have to, on another level, it's a get to, right? Like, some of these decisions you wouldn't make because you guys spent $100 million to do it. If you guys spent $100 million anyway, you should probably have a conversation.
Wait. Wouldn't that decision making even make this even longer? Because how is that folding into this conversation now involving what is the model of the city for teaching?
And the answer is maybe.
Is that the application, the MSBA type?
Yeah, that's part of why we have applications, because at some point in the process, you'll spend an education plan.
So,
Which is why I was saying, to be precise, don't say Brown stays a K-5 school, say Brown will 250 seats, because that would be part of the education plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right, that's what I was saying.
Confused here.
Yeah.
But the amount of classrooms.
I want to make sure I understand, Andre, are you saying,
Well, let me just check in. Is there a scenario in which, the group has been asking, we'd love to know what the school committee wants or thinks, right, about these options. Is there a universe in which, in like the time between now and this group makes a recommendation, that the school committee has something they want to say about programming for these new schools that would affect the decision that this group is making?
You're asking if in the next 2 months,
Yes.
the school committee is going to release a plan for the next 30 years of those schools?
Okay.
so what about the last 2 years?
We can use that as a criteria because we're
Yes,
No, I was,
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I feel like it is already a daunting task to consider all, I mean, the mandate we have at hand to layer all of that, because then, maybe all the schools will be K-5, so we already have one that's K-5. Then maybe we are building actually a middle school. That is no information, so I feel like it's a little unfair to throw it out there because it throws all of this out.
let me apologize. I think that the way I phrased it made it sound more daunting than I intended to be. I do think the timeline is an issue for your sticker shock issue, sticker shock thing, because it won't be the last exclusion we have to do. I'm just asking us to be precise about our language about things like the Brown School. We're not making a decision about what we do at the Brown School, other than are we going to have seats there or not.
Are we going to?
have seats there or not,
Okay.
right? And we're not making a decision about, you know, and just, yeah, to your point, I'm actually trying to make sure you keep our decision narrow. Because a lot of things that will be decided after this fact
Yeah.
are going to be, have to be decided, but no, I'm not saying you have to decide those things. I apologize, I didn't mean to say that.
Yeah.
But more options are better.
Yeah,
For this
but,
school.
I mean, I hear that, but what I feel is like we already have to put many constraints, right? Many things that are square in a round hole or whatever you want to say the metaphor. And I feel like layering more possibilities, which are the ones that occur today, but we don't know, in 5 years, we can have a drop in enrollment, we can have a new theory of education. I have a hard time, adding that, which is all very hypothetical. Yes, more questions are better, more options are
Yeah.
better, but where we stop?
Also.
Okay, hang on. I want to go with the hands that are up. Sorry, because we've had Matt and Ellen.
So I think my first question is actually to Rich. Let's say we go with scenario D, and in 2 years, the school committee, with whatever makeup it is, decides keeping the Brown School as a priority for us educationally. Does the MSBA change how they're funding things at that point? Does that put us in a bad position? If we make a decision now that is not explicitly supported in that sense, do we run that risk?
It's a good question. I don't have an answer for you. Let me do a little digging and see what the.
Can I ask a follow-up question? This has to go to school. The reverse question is also true, right? If we decide to build an 100% school at Sycamore, are we committing to no longer using the Brown?
To not.
I think we have to.
Yes.
That's the deal.
That's it,
If
yeah.
you take money
No.
for a big school, you have to commit to
Why?
that.
No.
I don't know, I think that's MSBA.
That's my question, right? That's my question, right?
Okay.
Can we build an 100% school, and then later, can later school committee decide, actually, we're gonna use this building for whatever other purposes? Are we saying that building's closing?
I assumed not, right? Like, they're giving us money to replace an aging facility, and we can't just keep that facility operational.
Yeah.
It becomes
But-
an
but-
asset
but
owned
the-
by the city.
Forever.
And the city can decide what to do with it.
So, Rich, do you have a more definitive answer?
Yeah,
to that?
no. I've got a way of framing it is, on the face of it, yes, they're giving us the money for the larger school. So from an overall school portfolio, they would expect it to close. But in terms of the programming and the availability, they certainly wouldn't then turn around and fund a renovation project at the Brown because they already gave us the money for that. But if there's a way for the city to continue to use the building,
Right, it would become an asset owned
It
by
would
the
become an
city,
asset.
but not necessarily.
the other thing that at least this analysis is mute on, that I'm almost hesitant to say this out loud because it's yet another layer of complexity that I don't know that we'll be able to retire by the end of it. Certainly, your reaction to this is the same as our reaction. By that I mean Ed's and mine. That the debt exclusion numbers are round numbers twice what they were for the high school. The high school was clearly a citywide asset. And in round numbers on total district enrollment, this would be less than 1/4 of all the grade 8 and younger. And so is there a way to net this down? And is there a world in which we then sell the Brown and use some of that proceeds to net this down as part of the overall package?
Hang on.
Go for, yeah, I'll let you finish, and then I'm raising my hand as well
Yes.
to get in line, and there it is.
Emily.
What I heard you say is that it is a value for the school committee there's a preference for maximum flexibility, right? So something you could talk about that might be equipped to talk about right now is which of these options provide that flexibility? Because we've said over and over again here, we can't decide who teaches what and what kids attend. Like, we have to allow other deciders to populate the schools and so on and so forth, right? So I think just like, I don't know if you want to put it in our matrix or whatever, but it's like which allows that kind of flexibility. And it's not just regrouping students in different cohorts. It's not just making a middle school. Like the swing space question is actually gigantic.
That's actually where the
And
part
it's,
is.
and you know, because it's not just that we have other aging buildings, we have other schools at capacity, we have programs at the different space needs. So there's actually like a thing that that I just don't want to forget about in the mix of all of this, because it's not just about making our school district bigger, it's about making our space assets bigger as well. And then I really do think it would be very hard to keep the Brown online in any, in any scenario where we're not lumping it in. I just think, my experience with
Yes, no, thank you for saying it better than I did. That's what I was trying to get at.
Okay,
Yes, thank you.
yeah.
Okay, so I think just to respond to that, like, we will add flexibility for future school committee decisions to the matrix, because that's, I think, a good thing to evaluate.
I think that the conversation is still extraordinarily hypothetical at this point. We do not know what's going to happen federally and what will funding look like in the future as well. And I'm glad we have you, Director Rage, saying that, yes, if the Brown School closes, that the city most likely will sell that building. Is that correct? Yes. So there is a good...
I can't presuppose an outcome one way or the
Okay,
other.
well, it sounds like it's
Because
definitely like a leaning...
Well, there are a lot of things that would have to line up to allow us to do that, but we can't take it off the table as part of an overall deal. If in order for, if everyone would, to think to get to a successful debt exclusion override, that part of that math is selling the building to net it down, then that might be a decision. If flexibility and additional space for either the school system or other uses is the higher or better use of that, and we want to, and we've decided that value is greater than what we could make on selling the building, then I don't think we would consider selling the building.
Because the reality is, if the two schools are closed, if Winter Hill is closed and the Brown School is closed and combined, then we do have the Brown School that will be empty. And realistically, we want to be clear that hypothetically, it wouldn't just be used for swing space. There's a good chance that the city of Somerville will sell that building, the Brown School building, is a viable option of property to sell and unload.
That can only be done with a vote of the school committee and acquiescence of the city council.
And with the fact that currently school committee has quite a few people potentially turning over, a couple of people that the school committee is elected every 2 years, and we have some new faces either way, a couple of people on the school committee that won't be returning this year. There's going to be changes no matter what. So there's a lot of mega hypotheticals in this scenario. Federally on down to right here are 4 square miles, but it leaves me quite concerned what you are relaying to us, Director Rage.
Marta, did you want to jump in? Since I cut you off earlier.
I mean, we were just talking as to, the elderly has not been sold, so,
We're never selling the elderly.
Oh,
Huh?
We're never selling the elderly.
Right, like we're saying,
We're never gonna
just
school
because the school
No.
is vacant.
I love that building.
No, but I mean, that just because the school
Cummings is a
not
different story.
vacant doesn't mean that it's going to be sold to the biggest bidder. And I think that the city will have to evaluate that, and I hope that we find a better programming than selling it to a
We are
developer.
currently paying 6 figures a year in rent to Tufts for Central Avenue.
Well, I mean, if we didn't have it, the kids that are from the.
Right, but
They
yeah.
don't
And
have to. So,
we're paying $6 million. or
6 figures.
6 figures to rent a building we used to own.
Right,
Right.
right.
And may I add that the city currently did a study on all the buildings that we own and are viable to sell, et cetera, and our property. So yes, we still own these buildings. However, it's not guaranteed that some of these other buildings might be shut. And we have lawsuits that we have to pay, the city does, and find money and such. And who knows what hypothetically we have to deal with at a city level. And I'm thinking of the Washington Street settlement.
To ask the question more directly, when, of all the, let's say, last 20 to 30 years of school buildings that are no longer in use, how many of those have been sold? And
Or
then
two, I think. I don't know when was sold TAB, so perhaps two.
TAB was sold in '86.
Okay, and so Powerhouse in '99, which by the way we got.
Which is not in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But
Thank you for that. Not saying for anything for that below my back.
the point is, like, I think it's a good point that there's an opportunity there, but also that is not the track record of the city to take these buildings and make economic use of them. I mean, Cummings, 1895, other buildings, they do not, they sit vacant. I think for me, that's the biggest concern I have about occupying school right now is another vacant lot in Somerville.
So the current position of the Somerville School Committee, which to Council President's point, is always a moving target, is that the current position of the Somerville School Committee that we will not release a building to the city in the absence of a plan that provides swing space and a permanent home official office.
So,
Can I finish my thought on that?
Yeah.
Following up on Paula's point, this is another hypothetical thing that we cannot solve. We are not part of that decision-making group. So let's just put it to the edges or like the periphery, but not let that overwhelm us. Like we cannot do anything about it. There's only so much we can control in this group, so let's just try to focus.
so
And we are not responsible for
Yeah.
any of that.
Right.
I think Emily had it right. Just remember the school committee would value some flexibility.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
details.
in general, we should decide what matters
Right.
and
Yes.
not
Yes.
get bogged down in,
Exactly.
yeah.
But in a certain sense, we are making a decision with educational
Yes.
consequences.
I hear, but at the end of the day, we have to choose that, and we might say that gives more flexibility, less flexibility, opens the possibility, but because they are all hypotheticals, and also we are not even considering scenarios, meaning in use programming scenarios that are not a task. Let's put it to the side because we will drive ourselves crazy trying to layer all of that. And it's not our responsibility. It's nice to think about it, but we don't have to deliver that.
Right, I think my point is that if the district or the school committee said, we strongly value or we don't want to have a K-5 school from an educational perspective, or we want to maintain this, I think that would influence my decision.
Right, we're not going to say it before November, I can tell you that.
Right, but like, I mean, again, it's frustrating because this didn't come up in the last month, right? Like, these options have been on the table for nearly 2 years. We haven't really heard any sort of definitive recommendation from an educational perspective, other than it doesn't matter too much, I think, from the SDS presentation. So like, I agree, we can't take that into account, but it's still frustrating that we don't have that information to take it into account.
Would you rather us run another year-long process to get city input on that question?
No, it just would have been nice to know, like, oh, we've been long wanting to go to a K-5 model. And, like, for years, we've always wished we could, but we can't because of this. Just like that kind of background of like, what is the climate about what people want? I don't know, that would have, I agree with you, that I feel like we asked Dr. Carmona that too, and I get why you don't want to say anything, but that's just what we wish we had.
At some point, somebody has to commit to something.
I get it.
I could say 100 things to that beyond I agree and I know why we don't.
Right, I know why we don't, but that's what we would have liked.
Well, hopefully this provided some clarity.
Yeah.
Just to bring it back to this, so what I'm seeing here is there's a $4 million swing in the annual debt service. And the cost to the individual average home owner is somewhere a couple $100 a month, or a couple $100 a year as a tax bill.
Correct.
And the deltas there are 50 to 100 kind of range, right?
Yeah.
Just in
There,
terms of what we
thereabouts.
sell in the debt exclusion, how we
Correct.
market it is like, I don't know if it's 3, I don't know if it's 500, depends on your house.
Yep.
And the difference between these options is $25 or 50 or 100, depending which one we choose. Just to bracket it,
Yeah.
because like that helps to
Yeah,
understand.
I mean, that's
People
what
vote
this is
through,
useful for.
what does it
is
mean to me, right?
The order of magnitude and the relative difference. that's what this can offer. So hopefully that is helpful information.
Let me ask a very provocative question. With this information on the table and the risks that we talked about in terms of building the Trump option in particular, what advantages does that offer?
So I've given this some thought too, because I'm an engineer, and I just think in terms of math and risk, right? Clearly this, given the risks with Trum, including the relocation of the field and the cost of the relocation of the field, all other things being equal on an economic and risk management front, certainly the Sycamore site is the more stable choice of the two for combined. What that does in terms of trade-offs is we already have a misalignment of seats and students towards the east. The West Neighborhood School is only marginally larger than the Brown. Its capacity is around 350 students. The Kennedy is a large building, but it also has special ed and medically fragile that takes up a lot of real estate. So its enrollment numbers, as long as those programs are in that building, are fairly low for gen ed. And granted, the Brown only goes to 5, so we already have this imbalance for 6, 7, and 8. But it does create a longer commute distance for K through 5 for the population, simply by moving that 650 students for K5 westward down Medford Street. That's not to say that there isn't another way to look at the problem and then sort of rebalance the educational use, specifically the Kennedy, so that we have more seats on the west. But that's the trade-off, is the commuting distance for students from the west.
Sorry, can I just ask one question about that, Rich? Because I think in the past you've also talked about the playground space implications. How major is that for the playground space if the new school is at Sycamore versus Trump? The playground space for the students in the school.
Yeah, either way you lose some playground space compared to what's there right now. Yeah.
Either way, even at
The
Trump.
6-story versus the 5-story.
Correct.
Preserve
Yeah.
more of that.
Yeah.
So, one question, because the Kennedy, again, because this is the decision of where we create classroom space, right? This can be combined with a rezoning of the schools who gets the priority, right? So it doesn't mean the students that, say, a family that is currently assigned to Brown or West or Kennedy cannot do some switcheroo to rebalance who gets assigned to what. But how complex will it be, say, to make more classroom room in the west of the city to move all the special ed maybe into the new building?
You're thinking along the same lines I am. I don't have it all sussed out. Where we replicate programming and how that balance is something that we need to spend some time with, that we haven't done yet.
And that none of that is considered
No.
any
No.
say potential renovation of Kennedy to admit more students from the neighborhood and offer more seats for kids living in that area. That
Correct.
is not part of any.
No, not yet.
You have to be paid for differently.
Yeah.
Get in line behind all the.
Yeah.
But I do think, given that potential shift of programming east with a new building that would open up gen ed space that you said would be a benefit of the Trump versus other scenarios. If that mitigates that, I mean, your question of just what's the benefit of Trump? For me, it doesn't feel like it looks a little bit more expensive. It feels to me we'll get the survey results. The city does not, the populace does not want that. So it just doesn't feel like as viable of an option.
Yeah.
Really. worth considering. I get that we have to for the MSBA process, but it feels like D or A, or I guess, you know, options
Whatever.
1 or 3, whatever we said earlier.
No, and I think part of that is, yes, there's more of a balance of seats on the east side too, but there are more students on the east side. And I believe if we look into the projected numbers of construction, there's a lot more housing going to be constructed on that side as well too over the next several years. I don't know that specifically.
Clarendon throws that off.
The Star Market site and stuff like that.
Yeah,
too.
Clarendon throws that off.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Do we know where the students go to school?
Mostly to the west.
Okay, so they won't, Clarendon, that throws it off, won't be affected by the,
It's good,
Well,
well,
one could
I'm-
imagine
yeah.
down the line that we don't do a proximity school model, right? And
Yeah.
it's like Cambridge, you could be
anyway.
Yeah.
put all over the place. And, but we don't get to decide that.
Yeah.
And so, or sorry, I had one thing I wanted to say, and I'm just blanking now, but, okay, I forget it, go ahead, sorry.
Also, we saw that a small percent, it's not a very large percentage of the kids that go to their neighborhood school. We also have that data.
That's what I was gonna say, we have that scatter
So,
plot.
we can also get trapped into thinking that people are gonna do that. because
Only
they
about
don't.
half of the kids at any given school live within the.
About
the
50%
corner.
or something, so.
Right, so there's already people who.
Maybe a large percentage of students who, you know, are kids who were born in 2028, their families might decide to send them to the new school.
Exactly.
Right? And I think it's very, we've talked about commute as not being a critical factor in that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have lots more time to talk about the implications, but I want to move us on, if we can, to the operation and maintenance costs and the personnel costs. Amara's asked if we can go first into the SPS costs, and then, in case she needs to go to the
Yeah, because I want to try to get to
school committee meeting.
Yeah.
We have the, do you have the tab that has the update?
Yeah, the detail. Yeah, this is
Yeah,
here.
so can I hand this to you, Deb?
Sure. Thank you. So I just want to note that our finance department put this together, and I'm speaking on their behalf. If there are questions that I don't know the answer to, I will definitely get that over to them and potentially enrollment. I also want to flag that we got really good questions and feedback from somebody on this committee, and we were able to update it. If you want to share who you are, you can, but I don't want to, put you out there. But I really appreciated some of the questions that we received about the projections. So on the left-hand side, you're looking at current staffing levels based on our current enrollment. And you see, I don't know, can folks see that from the screen? I hardly can't, so I'm going to look on my laptop. And so you essentially see minor savings due to administrative changes. So you would need one less dean in a combined school, and I think speech pathologists went down by like a 0.2. So modest savings if you were to combine at current levels. Then if you shift over to the projection from the MSBA, so we were looking at with current enrollment at SY 32-33, there is about a $450,000 savings. And again, you're looking at savings around administrative costs. If you look at it in a combined, if you're looking at combined for that same year, it goes up by about $50,000 at the 925 level. And so those are the cost savings. In terms of how they did it, they looked at our current staffing plan. So this is on current staffing, and they just looked at inflation and did it that way. I don't know if folks have questions.
Isn't what's important to know the cost per student? Like how does these
So when we,
To save money.
like the per pupil cost, like how are you saving money?
Like, if you have more students, it costs how much per student, and if you have a smaller model, how much it costs per student.
So if you, okay, do you want to look at a certain year so we can narrow it down? But the way we did it was, okay, at the Brown currently, there's 232 students, and we were looking at personnel costs plus non-personnel costs. And that's just how much we're spending on that right now. If you were to combine, we're literally just bringing those same students together. And because it would be in one building, you would need one less dean.
Yeah, I understand. So,
Okay.
I mean, I'm making it's the same, it's like exactly $200 per student.
Yeah, and probably because in our, correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of personnel, and this in terms of personnel, we spend the same amount per student
Right.
in every school, well, I mean, roughly, right?
I would
We
say
don't
no.
have a balanced budget
It's
in the
exactly
school.
$200. I just made the math, I
Yeah.
divided that, it's $200 per student.
Sorry, just to answer your question, no, we don't pay the same amount per student because different programs cost different amount of,
Right,
okay.
but, I mean, I'm just trying to understand the difference, but they're not different.
Roughly, I mean, in general education, I mean, it's my understanding that our budget doesn't change. Different schools we don't have it has a name. When you give more money per student to schools that have, say, a more minority population than others. And certain we don't do it because many PTAs have asked for it and it's not the way we budget. So I don't know what the name is.
Equity per pupil is?
Yeah, but this, you can choose so much per student, 500 students, 200 students, whatever, and you distribute equally, or depending on a student that goes to a more at-risk school gets more per student than a student that goes to a different school. We do not do that.
Oh. I think the takeaway I got was that the savings here is more in facilities than it is
Yes, it's not
in
per
personnel and
pupil.
salaries.
Yes.
Right,
Exactly.
like
And like the upfront cost.
yeah, like we
Yes.
sort of had a hunch like, oh, would it be better for the district somehow to have a big school where everyone's together just in terms of salaries? And the answer is like, nah, not really. There's like a few administrators that you wouldn't want, but you wouldn't reduce your staff very much. Why would you? We don't want you to do that, but, right, that's.
And it makes sense if you think that it's cost per student.
Right.
Yeah.
So the bigger the school, the more money they need, the smaller the school, the less.
And that's
Yeah,
how
if you
it
move a
be
class.
Right,
If you move a class from one building to the other, you don't save. I mean,
Right.
maybe some consolidation in the admin,
very big.
but
Right.
not much.
Yeah,
I think I just want to respond to some of the conversation just to make sure that I'm reflecting the reality of it. We don't know which students we'll have in 2032 and 2030, I think those are the years, and 33. But it will depend on what kinds of supports each student does or does not need. So it's not necessarily a one-to-one, and it's something that we can't predict. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, and the majority of the savings would be minimal, but in administrative costs. So that's the key takeaway.
In this,
Okay.
it's not explicitly stated here, but I think in these numbers essentially assumes that Winter Hill, the combined school hosts the AIM program and there's no other special educational changes.
That is what it's assuming, but that might not be the
And that would be a
case.
school
But it's a
committee choice.
projection based on
Right, and so I
current.
think if you just did the numbers per pupil, Winter Hill has a higher per pupil cost because of added cost of things like the AIM program and Newcomer Academy versus Brown where there aren't those special programs. I can't remember, I saw the number recently, and I can't remember where I saw it, but it was substantially higher for Winter Hill students versus other, but it's mostly because of those special education. It's not a difference in the general education per, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in the first email.
It was in the first email,
It
okay.
was like in the notes at the bottom. The first version is in the bottom had something about per student cost.
Yes, that's the one I was thinking of, yep.
Any further questions about this? It sounds like some takeaways, not a huge driver.
It feels like, I mean, I would say maybe not huge. There's something to this and the facilities costs that I know we're gonna look at next that may make marginal differences, but not huge. $1 million combined maybe a year. We'll see what the next one says, but add that to like the 4 million of the debt exclusion. Something.
I mean, the budget of SPS is in the 100 million range.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You're right.
So it'll be 150 million in 2032.
Yeah.
All right. Rich, you going to speak to these numbers? No. Oh, Kenneth, okay.
So this estimated DPW maintenance cost was put together by our finance director from DPW, so I want to make sure we're giving enough credit. And I'm going to try my best of ability to walk through, explain it, but if you have any questions or concerns, we can certainly check back with him and circle back with answers. So the first line of item for 2025 is the total estimated school maintenance cost we are at. So I think 2025, 2026 are the closest accurate numbers we're looking at. And then moving forward, all years, 2027, 2028, he added 3% inflation to the 2025 cost that we're looking at. And then the fourth column we're looking at is estimated pre-K-8 area that we're looking at in the K-8 studies and all. So the square footage area is, the first one is combined, and then the second one is individual school, and then the third one would be for the Brown School. So the percentage of total area, 11% comes from the current district-wide square footage. So, so the 195,000 we're looking at is the current 11% of what we have now, the pre-K. Like that's the best guesstimate percentage we're looking at.
When you say individual school, that just means the Winter Hill Sycamore Street site?
So yeah, the square footage is, yes.
The projected.
Projected square footage of the new Winter Hill School.
Projected for Winter Hill. Not with the
Yeah.
And then we try to break down into HVAC repair, estimated electricity, and estimated gas, which is also each year have 3% inflation increased as the year goes by. We try to highlight it from 2031 when we are estimating the new school will be tentatively open to give better idea of what will be this cost when the new school is up and running. And these are all projection based on the best data that he has. So DPW doesn't track cost on construction level. All this data are collected from their current operating costs and based on that. And the maintenance and staff counts all comes from square footage of the building rather than student counts, if that.
And this doesn't take into account the numbers we saw last time with sort of the projected sort of regular maintenance and everything like that, like boiler replacements or something like that.
The capital
Yeah.
improvement hasn't been counted yet. Yes.
For the Brown School, is the HVAC and the electricity swapped, or is it because we're thinking that the other two buildings would be all electric and then the?
So yes, good point. That's with the Brown School, we're currently mostly on gas. So the gas usage is much higher versus for Combine and the new winter, we're thinking as it will be more electricity heavy. Thank you for bringing that point.
But not all?
Yeah, all electric, the best guess.
Why is there any gas budget then?
The current Brown
No,
School.
in the top.
Combined school.
Oh, I think he must have, it must be a mistake that he added gas to the chart.
Yeah.
That's kind of a big mess up, isn't it? It kind of goes against our whole concept of being a green.
Well, so Eric doesn't have any data on an all-electric building to project what the actual electric cost is. So he just used the district-wide gas consumption to have a plug number.
Prorated by area.
Correct.
But that, pardon me, but that it kind of goes against our whole vision as a city and our values of being as green.
We're not saying we would build that. We're just saying Eric didn't have anything else to estimate heating costs off of, no data point. So he used the current gas consumption.
We've never looked at that in any climate plans? Or
Right.
Might be the time that was.
I mean, we have a citywide
Yeah.
climate plan, right? Like that should be included in that, I would imagine.
It's kind of a big thing. It's like a direct.
The climate plans focused on carbon emissions and consumption more so than cost calculations. We can certainly find out if they've done this, or if they could extrapolate it.
Yeah, we can find out that information.
I mean, cost-wise, it's neutral. I mean, it depends on where electricity rates go, but it's right now maybe slightly higher to heat with electricity, but
I think that the main takeaway is that having a number for heat here, the largest difference is the utility cost. The custodial costs are pretty much a wash because that's all that's paid. So to Corey's point, the difference on the school administration in round numbers is $500,000 per year. And the difference on the one school versus the two schools with the utility costs is only about $200,000 per year. So all told, you're less than $1 million on a $360 million budget.
It's exactly 6 months. I mean, I understand that even that the numbers will never be very dramatic, no matter how you think, but I thought naively that keep running an older building, the older our buildings they are, I don't know what is older than right now the Brown, but whatever comes next in operations in our school, I don't know.
City Hall.
No, but schools,
Yeah.
right? I don't know. Healy.
The West. The West is second oldest.
If you take West,
94.
and if you take East, right? The two K-8 schools, not comparable in size, but comparable in function. I would, top of my head said, per square footage or per pupil, the associated cost exclusive to East should be less than West because it's newer things. But that's a supposition. Maybe things break more because, schools are not built to last or whatever. So do we have a sense of that, or is really also market?
So unfortunately, the city and DPW doesn't track cost on a per building basis. Just the way that their budget works,
Okay.
it goes across the whole portfolio, which is why the best the DPW ops manager was able to do was pull citywide data and apply it on a per square footage basis.
Okay.
So we track these maintenance costs of all buildings together or just schools together?
All buildings together.
So out of all buildings covered under this, we're talking, you said $200,000-ish, $300,000 difference.
Round
What
numbers.
percentage of that, because this would be managed under the budget of the city, not the school district.
Correct.
What percentage of city maintenance costs, of city maintenance budget is that? Like when we talk about a
Oh.
$300,000 difference, where does that swing the city?
Eric would be able to tell you that off the top of his head. I don't
guess
know.
not much.
Again, it's as with the calculation on the school administration costs, it's like a 1% difference. Is probably about there too. Yeah.
No, I mean, I am a little surprised, but now that I think of it, probably a lot of things are purchased centrally, right? I mean, first of all, the personnel is centralized and many, I don't know, paint or whatever, I'm saying, oh, we need to paint. We don't buy just paint for once. It's very simplistic what I'm saying. I never thought much about that, but now that this is clear, the operational cost and the maintenance cost, no, whatever we cut it will never change.
It's not gonna matter one way or the other.
Well, but that's good to know.
Right. Sorry, Marta, and then.
Is that, so if I get a $500,000 for Brown over the square footage, it's about $18 per square foot of maintenance cost. When we go to newer buildings that have electric, whatever, the estimation drops to $6 per square foot. So that is the difference. Like, to me, it's way more expensive to maintain Brown over two new buildings, whatever they are, bigger or smaller, because we're estimated to spend less on maintenance. That's what comes out from that, the math.
Yeah, I think that's what I saw too. I mean, it's accurate difference, but I think as sort of a relative amount relative to the scope of city budgets and what we're talking about here, I don't think this, to me at least, this does not feel like a deciding factor one way or the other. Like if we felt very strongly about keeping the Brown school, this wouldn't dissuade me from that. Right?
Court.
Well,
education.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
3 times the maintenance cost,
Per square foot, but it's only much fewer square foot.
because it's old.
I feel like we could probably like nitpick some of the estimates. The conclusion to me is just that like there is some savings to a combined school from both utilities and personnel. I don't know, 700,000, a million, whatever you want to estimate it at. And you can decide whether that matters or not.
Yeah.
Which I feel like it's just one of the things factoring in addition to just the overall cost of the building itself.
Well, and a handful of the scenarios we're considering involve keeping the Brown going. And we can see that that's more expensive and will get more expensive going forward.
Yeah.
That's a thing we can say.
And I don't know, like, after renovation, do you expect the costs of the Brown per square foot to be equivalent to the costs of a new building? Or somewhere in between, if it's, right?
Well, it would be a big renovation, so we'd have to have the money to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
I have the same thoughts of you, this won't change, but I mean, it's just being sensitive.
Yeah.
I know it's not a big deal, but I think that eventually it will transpire, whatever, even if it's marginal, you know, someone will know, cost more, cost less. And I feel like when we are asking people for their money, even if it's only a few cents of difference, I think that we will have to be, cognizant that, it's easy to say, oh, it's not much money. You're asking people for money. So I'm with you. I think that it doesn't make a difference, but whatever it will have to be communicated in a
win.
Yeah. I'm also not I'm not saying it doesn't make a difference. I'm just saying
No,
there
no,
is a
but then
difference, and then you can decide if
Yes,
that's
yes,
important.
yeah.
And it's frankly smaller than I might have expected.
Me too.
Exactly, yeah.
Much smaller.
I think, I can't remember who said it last meeting, so apologize, but, you know, we also don't wanna overly get too into the weeds down to the penny
Yeah,
here
yeah,
either,
no,
because we can't know. And things are gonna change. There can be massive electricity spikes that make every single new building, you know, be hugely expensive going forward. Any number of things. What I'm not seeing here personally is a difference. It's one to be cognizant of and one to be sensitive about, I agree, but I don't see data in here that suggests pulling me one way or the other.
Okay, yeah. So for time, if it's okay, I want to just quickly move over to Denise to give us, and Dream to give us an update on the community input, and then we can dig a little deeper into talking about the options as people see them now. And now I've gotten myself tangled.
Hi, everybody. Denise Taylor, Director of Communications and Community Engagement. I'm going to try to be really quick because we've run a little bit late in the agenda. So first, the survey has been out in the wild for approximately 4 weeks. To the subcommittee and everybody that contributed, I think you did a really good job on it because it has inspired a lot of participation. Right now, we're at 1,990 responses. And I think it won't be long before we pass 2,000. Just for reference, the last survey that was considered to have broken new ground with huge response rate was about 1,290 for the public safety for all surveys. So we have broken all records, but numbers aren't everything. What's important is that we are drawing from different demographic groups, and we have really good demographic categories that you all worked on in this survey, and right now we have strong representation in every category except a couple that we are working on. So one of them is 18 to 24-year-olds. We still need to get more of those to reach our representative threshold that makes it statistically useful. We are short on people who have lived here for less than a year. And if you listen to these categories, some of these make sense. And we are also, we have strong representation in all of the income categories except people earning less than 24,000. So, or roughly 20,000, I forget where it cuts off. So there were a lot of categories. Everything else, all the different schools, parents of students in gen ed, parents of students in special education, people across the city's wards, you name it, like every other category, strong responses. So we are not stopping here though. So we are out actively. The schools asked us to hold off the first week of full first week of school, which ended last week. We are out tabling at Winter Hill and Brown and Capuano this week. We are also doing a push with partners to spread the word, and we're looking at possibly ending around Monday the 21st or 2nd.
Yeah, we're still figuring out the kind of precise close date, but are potentially thinking sometime between September 15th and the 22nd.
And we're making an effort to make sure that we hit those groups that we want to get over the statistical threshold on. Do you have a question?
On that topic, there are a couple big events the weekend on the 20th, I think, so I don't, that's the Gilman Square Neighborhood Festival, or no, that's this weekend. Fluff Fest, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Fluff Fest is the 20th, so.
Yeah. That might be a good place to get 18 to 24s. Yeah, we will have to keep their sticky hands off our surveys.
10 o'clock at the Burn on Saturday night.
Yeah, you threw me off there. And we're going to the senior picnic tomorrow morning as well. I know that some of you were interested in that, and we have strong representation in the age groups, but we still want to make sure we get some more seniors. Also, language groups, ethnic groups, racial groups, gender groups, everything. So that is good news. We are on track for that to close, be analyzed, and delivered to you for your October 27th meeting as promised.
The next piece that we are working on with DREAM and CBI are the focus groups that we discussed last time. So we are just now starting with pulling together targeted recruitment for those. The analysis for those will take less time, so we have a little more space on those. Do you need me to remind you what the groups are? See a head shaking, okay. And you will get data from those as well at the same meeting, October 27th. So you will be having access to, I think, some pretty strong community feedback that will probably just add to your confusion, is my guess. But it will allow you to draw insights from it. And I don't really have anything else unless you have questions.
You mentioned the language groups are well represented.
Yeah. Yep.
Any other recommendation I can do, you can do a tabling and the food market. We start tomorrow, the food market is over 300 families coming. Yep. The people come speak Spanish, Portuguese, English. ER people is the low resources, so it's maybe 300 in Somerville, 300 at the West Somerville. It's over 600 people you can reach. Yep. Remember, tomorrow we start at 2:45 here in the east. But the next week, the next month will be the first Tuesday of each month. Mm-hmm. We do this time the second one because we already start the school. So, but tomorrow is a good time of now. In October, the first Tuesday can be due because a lot of people, new people over there, sometimes they listen about the food market, sometimes people who don't listen or not go to the schools, have the opportunity to the table, come to this place because some people sometimes is not in contact with the school, coming to the food market.
So we're thinking alike because we have staff heading there tomorrow as well. So the Somerville Office of Immigration, I'm sorry, SOIA, I'm sorry, I'm tired. They go every time anyway. And this time they're going to be going and representing the survey, and people wait in line. So as they're waiting, they will walk the line. We won't sit behind a table, we'll be walking the line. We have that staffed up, right? Yeah. Yeah, Office of Immigrant Affairs. Yeah.
Can I just
Yes.
say that you spoke English all the time? Translation for months?
No. I speak a little now. I spend all my English, but sometimes and some words, especially with budget, is something like that for me. I understand a new vocabulary, but I'm trying to do the best because I know they are doing a big job trying to translate them. They'll help me to understand a lot because some ones talk too fast. Sometimes we need to talk slowly for understand the pronunciation, but I can understand more, I can speak. Just for the pronouns, but I'm trying to do this change because I frustrate a lot when I was in the PTA meetings. Sometimes lost all the time the line because nobody helped me with that. But now I can hear and both, I am trying to learn more because I think for that we thought. If we learn more about everything, we can grow up more. That is the goal here. Grow up not just for me, for my child, for the community and all.
So you're doing tabling at the schools today, and I know I didn't see anybody at drop off today. I know people were tabling and pickup in both regular school pickup and after school pickup. Are there plans to do anything in the morning?
We were advised to do pickup because people are in less of a hurry. And so we took your request and we stayed all the way through till after school pickup as well. So we were there, I don't know, 4 hours or so at Winter Hill, and I don't
Probably not a lot of people in the middle.
If I may.
No, in the middle it was quiet.
Okay, why not?
What?
If I may, how did
It was
you
great. It was great. So I would say we talked to a lot of people at Winter Hill. I heard that Brown was also very busy. At Winter Hill, I'd say it was about 50-50 people who had already taken the survey and who had not and needed a reminder, and some people who didn't know what it was. So it was good that we were there. There were lots of happy kids who left with stickers and pencils and so forth, which is how we lure their parents to the table. And do you want to talk about Brown?
We had a pretty similar experience at the Brown today. I would say a majority of people that we talked to had already taken the survey. An even stronger majority were aware that the survey was available to take and said, oh, it's like in my inbox, I'm planning on it. So definitely like strong participation and awareness at the Brown.
I mean, it's not surprising that Brown and Winter Hill parents would already be very tuned into this in general. So I'm curious how it's going to go at the other schools.
Yeah, there were definitely some people though who needed a nudge, so, and some who weren't sure what it was. So it was good that we were there. It's also just, you know, it was fun to watch the kids at after school also, having a good time. Anyone else have other questions? Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just looking to see if I can get my computer to plug in, but it doesn't look like I can. So I could just walk us through this. Okay, so what we are going to do now is just take a little bit of time to talk about options, and we thought it might be helpful to break into small groups and to give you a chance to just talk about, of the options we've discussed, what are you seeing, right? What seems to be working? What are you leaning toward? So, do we have the instructions printed? So people have the oh, they're on the groups. Okay. So, your group's goal, and there'll be instructions at your small group table. We're going to break into 3 groups. And your group's goal is to talk about the options, right? And if we basically have 3 options, one of which has 3 scenarios, right? So option 1 is 2 buildings, one for Winter Hill and one for Brown renovation, Winter Hill rebuild. And the 3 scenarios are simultaneous, sequential, and let's say delayed to try for MSBA funding. Option 2 is a combined school at Sycamore, and option 3 is a combined school at Trum with a field replacement somewhere like Sycamore. Okay? You can adjust those details as you think about the options. But what we want you to do is really, like, given what you've heard so far, where are you leaning right now as the best possible option? What are additional considerations you would really want to name for those? And to really also just try to explain why. Of all the criteria, what are the ones that you're sort of putting first and why, right? So that's your assignment. Make sense? Sound okay? Yeah. And
with the small groups, how are we going to capture that for sort of the public, right? Like, our deliberation process.
We're going to come back and share out. Yeah, you're going to come back and share out. So you're going to go into your small groups and have your conversations, but then we'll come back and share out for the public. So group 1, we have 1, 2, 3. If there's the 1, 2, 3. Okay. So we're going to move Danielle. So group 1, Matthew, Marta, Julia, and Jack. Group 2 are going to come over here, and that's Gandhi, Corey, and Counselor Strezzo.
Why is there a group of this time, just out of curiosity?
Just because we wanted to mix people who we knew had different perspectives, or that and who represented different constituencies, so we make sure someone who has a relationship with Winter Hills at different tables, and people with relationships at Brown, that sort of thing. Group 3 is going to be Ryan, Emily, and Paula. So Julia, you're group 1, back with Marta. Yeah. All right, so Matthew, Marta, Julia, and Jack back here. We have Gandhi, Corey, and Counselor Strezzo over here. And at this table, we have Ryan, Emily, and Paula. So we're going to take about 15 minutes, and then I'll check in with you and see if we want to take another 5.
This is my thinking brain. Yeah, I'm mulling over data, but not writing data down. And I'm like, I have to do something with my hands.
What are you missing?
I didn't get one of the packages.
Here you go. Someone stole yours.
So I guess just go through the
So, yeah.
options.
I mean, today was extremely interesting. It's just a nice track record on things like eminent domain. It's not the same thing by any means, but like if there's something that opens us to a lawsuit, I would assume that lawsuit is going to be filed.
The cost of defense is the biggest problem. Defense cost, money's going to take, and the time it kind of stops.
Right.
That's the big issue. I would see it if you went forward today.
I think it actually be a little.
I mean, I think that Trump did have like name specific legislation. It's the only thing that we all want, which unlikely it's gonna be, so I'm not sure it's.
Yeah, I think that's very unlikely, and again, it's been a source of frustration.
It's not cheaper, it's not closer to the schools, it doesn't, it's gonna take over space, so it's proven to be a little bit expensive.
Yeah, I think there's a lot, and that's why I asked the question that way. Like, I'd really like to hear what that advantage was at this point. I hear the report about distance areas, but that is one of the reasons I was really hoping to hear more from the school committee in the last year or so on things like, we did do this, how would they approach that? How do they want to see people? For example, it was interesting, like one of the options could be over there besides putting other specialist programs at a new school, opening more population candidates. I mean, we can't make that call, but I think the idea that if there's like an east-west imbalance, it's totally solvable within school committees.
Yes, exactly. We don't need to, right. We don't need to build a school, just put it aside that people can support just to solve.
Exactly, right. And I think,
So I think the main way, I don't think that's enough of a way to be worth the, as you said, potential.
That's right. And moving a field and, okay.
And we got in the field. Tony here tells you has a video basically explaining why it's not a good idea. I'm surprised that
Not the number, I mean, look what you did here, not and not, and then between the 3.
No, it isn't.
the perspective.
All right, come on back.
It's a snapshot.
And we'll just,
Yeah.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you.
let's hear from each group and just take a couple of minutes to summarize for us what you came up with. So we'll start with group 1.
Group 1.
Okay.
So we came to 2 sort of conclusions, not a firm we should do this, but we basically ruled out option 1A and option 3 because both seemed improbable or had problems or potential problems that seemed to outweigh the benefits. In the case of the town field, we were concerned about the issues with replacing the field, and we didn't think the benefits really won out there. And for 1A, that's a bit crazy pants.
1A meaning?
Yeah, to try to do everything at the same time. And the debt exclusion has.
I see, so.
Yeah, scenario,
Yeah.
debt exclusions at once feels too risky.
Good. So we were floating around B, C, and D, and the sentence which I ended up writing, which I read off to the group, was, in a perfect world, what would be great is if we could get the maximum space in a building, give us the most options, without committing the Brown to a certain fate. So after we have the building done, we can figure out where do we stand now, what is the school committee doing, what's going on. And feel free to jump in if I said any of that wrong.
No, I completely agree, and I think we talked through a lot of similar issues that we've talked about as a broader group, and it just, especially I think given these numbers today, and there wasn't anything that was clearly an advantage of seriously considering the trauma option. And I will presuppose a little bit, but I'm gonna be very interested to see how the survey is gonna come out on that too. In my own conversations, we didn't talk about this too much in the group, but people that I've talked to don't want to lose Trump as an open space, and Winter Hill parents feel very strongly about the Sycamore site. So I think option 2, with the caveat that who knows what the school committee is going to actually ultimately decide to do, what the building committee is ultimately going to decide to do in terms of population there and solving some of those questions. I think that feels like the right move. I think Martha put it really well about being most efficient from a financial perspective and getting the most bang for our buck with the MSBA money.
So it sounds like you're saying, and let me see if I'm getting this right. There's one of the questions you have is there a way to do something like option 2 without wedding the city to abandoning Brown? Is that right? Is that what you were saying?
That sounds, one other thing we discussed was that it's not necessarily you build the bigger building and you transplant Brown. It's there's probably a redistricting if people get shuffled. So in that space, there might be flexibility for what happens with the Brown. So.
We also said, is there a more economical solution for Brown that is resolving the ADA access, but not necessarily building more? That would give that building another 30 years. And then people could choose. If I want my kids to be in the school with the gym, I will take the chance to go farther.
Yeah. But I think also ultimately, I think the question though is like, what is the size of the school? You want to rebuild a school at Sycamore, is what I'm hearing. And the question is, what is the size of the school?
I think we were leaning towards building the largest school for the most amount of flexibility from a school committee perspective.
Yeah.
At Sycamore Street.
So it's basically keep the Sycamore building, or keep the Sycamore site. And you're saying basically build the 900 kid school at Sycamore. Okay. Good. Group 2.
Is that us?
Yes.
That's whoever was at this table.
Okay, that's us, good. And it's Gandhi, Corey, and I.
Yeah.
And so Gandhi and I, Gandhi is a parent at Winter Hill. I was a parent at Brown. We both have kids in the school district. Corey is a parent, and little guy will be soon. Years to go, a student, but has a few years to go. Gandhi and I were very clear that we wanted option 1, and that smaller schools help children thrive, and we were very concerned about children being absorbed into the system, and we also have heard from both of our communities consistently, parents, families, children, and Gandhi can go on and talk, and I hope she does mention what she heard at an opening week, that all parents are very clear that they do not want either schools closed, that they want to preserve their communities, and that the extra commute time that, say for instance with Brown, or if a different location in Trum, would disenfranchise families and would make it even more difficult for parents and families and children. Gandhi went into specific details of what that extra 5 minutes or 10 minutes would look like. So for instance, with Broadway construction, and how that throws off truancy and makes it more difficult for families. And I mentioned that I have heard consistently, even as late as yesterday, in a group of 30 constituents, that they very clearly don't want the Brown School closed. And that it is a very unpopular decision. If Gandhi and I, in our thoughts, support option A or B. Gandhi, I'm open to saying A. And that, at least what we have made abundantly clear is that Winter Hill wants Sycamore, or needs it built immediately. What happens with the Brown is still can be determined. But Winter Hill community, we owe it to us owe it to them as a city that they need that. And please feel free to talk to Corey. Corey, don't want to speak for you, but unless you want me to, but yeah, go ahead.
Just for finish what Kristen is saying is, this is a school's pre-kinder to 8. A big school with over 900 students will be more hard, drop-off time, pick-up time, the buses for the 8 program and the special needs is sometimes in a big buildings, or kids with the special needs don't like too loud. You sometimes need you more careful watching them. In a big schools, this don't will happen. Now, in a smaller, sometimes cannot watch correctly to the kids with this need, what will happen in the big building. Sometimes say, we will contract more teachers. Really? That will happen? Because every year is less budget for the schools, no more. It is for that, of this, my personal point, talking this after past 2 years inside the school, help to the kids with an A program. I know sometimes the parents who don't have special kids, sometimes these points maybe cannot comprehend, but sometimes the kids with a special need, what Winter Hill is taken or IP is doing, need is more spaces, is sometimes the time these kids need for watching or spend the time or the place they are, sometimes is hard. It's right, we need goes up with new technology, with everything, but sometimes this time we need concentrate to what our kids needed. Because if you see in the past, more years we go in, more special need kids we have it. If the special kids need safe space, it's sometimes a smaller space, but in good conditions. That is my point, because what will happen in the future? Because we need to think, this spend money, it's not a building or a school for 10 years, 20 years. It's supposed, it's for life. We hope 40, 50 years of grandchildren can be in this school. But what's happened if something happened like in Brown or in Winter Hill? In where place we will put in 900 students? If now was awful, move the Winter Hill is less 400, we don't have a space, where will put in 900 students if something happened to the building? That is my point. Is what she said, I talked to in the welcome to the schools in August 20, with parents, with teachers, I'm involved in the community. If they say the same, the time they go to drop off the kids, the big one is don't feel confident because some people are new in the schools, or sometimes all the time when they listen about the high school. The high school is huge. It's for that more things happen in huge schools. If that happened with the high schooler, is 14, 15, 16 years, they can resolve by self. But a kid with 5 years old, 6 years old, can do resolve something by self in a big school? I don't think so.
One thing that I have consistently heard from residents in this city is that it is not just a financial or an infrastructure decision, that they want us considering their children and the parents, especially in a time when parents and families and children are so deprioritized federally on down. Parents have consistently told us that they don't want that in this decision.
And were you saying, you said A or B, so meaning you simultaneously or sequential for the Brown rebuild?
I think, well, I want to say A or B. Gandhi and I'd be comfortable being Gandhi on A, but I do think that B. I think whatever happens, we have to build a Winter Hill School now. So I think I would be, I think I'd be okay with B, at least in my opinion, but that's mine.
And then Corey, do you want to, sounds like you don't necessarily see it the same.
And we all agreed option 3 was not the right option, so there's that. But I mean, I won't, I don't know, I can speak at length, but just the shorthand for me, and especially seeing the presentations tonight, the financial implications of keeping the school separate. And you can frame it in 2 different ways. You could say the savings of combining the school and taking advantage of the state money that we can then use city funds for other things, or staving off potential further costs, cuts that would be required for the debt servicing, and perhaps the ongoing operational and personnel costs, for me, justify combining the schools. I recognize that things like the walk shed impacts would negatively affect some families, but it feels like the way in which the whole city essentially would have to subsidize keeping the schools separate in order to keep them separate and renovate the Brown, to me, makes me feel like option 2 is the best option.
Okay, thanks. All right, group 3. So the group that was over here.
That was super well said, but I liked that a lot. Okay, so we began with just honestly wishing we had more input from the education side, and just feeling like it was too bad, so we were saying how important is the K-8 model, how committed is the city to that, what do we do with that, and sort of going along from there and just saying that we, the 3 of us, it's super valuable to us, and we love that model, and how can we make a decision that supports that while allowing for flexibility and understanding that anything can happen. And so then, and jump in if I start to, we said maybe we need to separate the size of the school from the location of the school for a minute and just talk through those considerations. And I think for all the reasons other people have said, it just, while it is in a vacuum, it would be nice if we could get state funding for more tiny neighborhood schools. That's not what we're in. And we have this opportunity in front of us, and it's not, basically we think going for the biggest school you can get is just the thing that is the most flexible and just the best use of the opportunity in front of us, the bang for your buck, all of those things. When it comes to the location, I don't know, Ryan, you might want to give your idea. We were saying that the location is kind of, it's interesting because that's where sort of the community input comes in a little bit more. We hear that Trump is super important to people, so what are the options? And some of this honestly needs to be proved out by a feasibility study. Like, can you actually build the 2 things? There's just info that we won't have before we have to make this. So I think we came down a little softer on the location in terms of a factor. But we did wonder if we would be able to maybe offer some ideas, and I'll give you the floor because it's your idea. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I would say maybe we leaned towards Trump just because it seems like that's where the concentration is, or not Trump, I'm sorry. We leaned towards Sycamore because that's where the concentration of students currently is. And I think absent, preferably, actually coming forward to us with a vision for that site, whether it's district admin, a smaller school, a special program, PK site. There's so many options there that we're not seeing. And I think having that extra square open lets you, the school committee think about, well, okay, maybe we could do a middle school model here. Maybe we could move special programming here. Maybe we could free up spots at West and Kennedy to absorb Davis Square growth. And so that just, there's so much creativity that's available that it feels like we're not really accessing. And we don't, and I think the best option for the city is to, obviously, to make as much use of what we could at, say, Sycamore, but then have a real conversation, which is like, what do we want to do with this? And maybe it's K-6 model district-wide. You know, there's so many other flavors that we could look at that really are educational purview, so we can't make the decision. We can just position boxes on the map. And I think we want to really hear what the vision is for what goes in them.
Yeah, I want to add to what we all agreed. And for instance, I never heard an idea of doing a location that could, in the Brown site, admin or pre-K, and that to me can be the potential for a more sellable solution in terms of addressing the needs of parents that live in that proximity, that are more, the younger the kid, the more concerned the parent can be for having to go all the way to a further school, and the idea that creating quote-unquote second Capuano there, right? Will free space to absorb students in the other school. I mean, it never occurred to me. It seems like a great idea, and it seems at this conjunction a good compromise, right? Because it's true, we are not just selling what we do with this building, it's what happens when schools, or at least classrooms, combine, right? Like, we are combining classrooms in one time. But I hear what Gandhi and Councilor Stresso are saying about smaller schools for special needs students. And I wonder right now, for instance, at the Brown, how is the proportion of students with disabilities or IEPs, which is the population that, say, would be more vulnerable to a bigger school, or would be more impacted by a change to a bigger school, and whether, say, there is, again, with this creative moving classrooms around, there is an opportunity to create a program, right, or a style or something, a little bit like here, right? You have full circle and the general ed, so.
Peers, right? These are pretty standard sized schools in a lot of communities, but it would be nice to hear, like, oh, we are committed to making this feel like a neighborhood school, or here's how we would support our special needs students in a larger school environment, or here's what that would be, or, there's equal amounts of creativity there, both administrative and architectural. There's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think you really hit on something that's important, is, again, we've asked of this of kind of the school committee before, and I think we even heard it tonight. It's like really unwillingness to commit to what that looks like. And I understand how we can't rely on that for this kind of decision, but not hearing that creativity so far, I mean, this process has not been led by the school committee when it really should have been, right? And so at the end of the day, we're making these considerations, I think, from a financial efficiency perspective, that makes sense. But I would love to hear more ideas about the creativity of what we could do with Brown space. I think that fits in line with what we have talked about in general, like, build the capacity, not with the specific intent necessarily, if you could avoid it, of closing the Brown school, but I don't know, there's all talk from like a teen center and stuff like that in the various mayoral debates. Like, there's many gaps within the realm of students and children in general that having more space could benefit the city to a great degree. We have not heard those ideas in this decision-making process, though, and I think that's really disappointing.
Yeah, we've only thought about one-to-one replacements. And that actually, a huge driver of the cost is like, well, a one-to-one replacement needs a gym and an auditorium and a kitchen. And once you break free of that mold, you have a lot of architectural flexibility with what you can do there, if you change the need. And I think that would break some of those cost deltas down, depending on what you chose.
It doesn't seem like the way that it's going to go.
the Brown School closes or we just close the building, we have thoughts and feelings about what we could do with the space. None of us have the ability to implement it, and the administration and the school committee will do as it wishes.
Right, which is why it's so disappointing we haven't heard from them on this topic.
Agreed.
Sorry.
But then we need new people to make these choices for us, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
We need people who are gonna have some vision and show us, give us our ideas, not tell us how bad every idea we have is.
But, I mean, coming from the K-8 biggest school in the district, and I've said it before, it is not all that bad, right? I mean, I understand it's not a dessert. I mean, we have schools, I think of them as a dessert, right? We must be served a menu, and it comes in different flavors, and we are facing the option that maybe one of our menus is, or one of our items is being taken off the menu. But I think that we have the power, rather than get fixed now, think that, what we can do in this menu scramble. And it doesn't need to be a loss. And I think that she had another idea, can I say it? Rather than just send a recommendation, option 1, and we are done.
Let's write a Supreme Court opinion.
With dissenting of, no, but I think that is very valuable, because we spend so much time here, and there is a richness of avenues and ideas. We are doing a little bit of the work that the school committee should have laid before. We do it for free, because we are smart. But I think that should be part of the output, right? Like, okay, it's option whatever, but here are some guidelines that we believe are important, and the reasoning is this. It's not just because. I don't know. I think that's a.
Do you want to go first? You had your hand up.
I was just gonna say, to add to the concerns about the size of the school, for some of the architecture teams that have entered the competition or the RFP, when you start looking at the site, because it's on a hill and it's long and it turns, there's more opportunities to actually think of 2 smaller schools and not necessarily one big sausage. So there's ideas there that we can play with, and I think that I would not get caught too much into it's just gonna be one big school with a big hallway with 900 students. And if we make that part of the criteria for the design, I think it can be done. So.
Funny you should, I don't want to interject on this because I don't want to influence it. Tomorrow, as I said, is the first of 2 meetings with the designer selection panel with the MSBA. And what they allow the city and the district to do is, it's a 13-member panel, only 3 of which are from the city. But we are allowed to sort of make a couple of statements on what the community's priorities are, and I've outlined what ours would be. And the very first thing that I'm expressing to them is design creativity and how you make a big building feel small. That's the #1 challenge that we're looking for in an architect.
Okay. That's good to know.
So, we've gone over time. Yeah, so let me take one more.
Yeah, just one comment in general, and I think, I really am coming around, especially around option 2. The thing that gives me the most concern in general, just to reiterate that, and I'm looking at some notes I had made in a different conversation, I think it's really, in that sort of document, we need to make it clear where the city and the school committee need to provide that input to justify this. We can't say we're going to build a school with the intent to close something without a plan behind it, right? And so I think that is really important to be clear, is that the city and the school district and the school committee need to step up in that conversation as part of this.
We can make a recommendation contingent to.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Because I think if there's no alignment and no clear plan, it feels like it needs to be option 1, because that uncertainty is really, really challenging.
Thank you.
Yeah. But if there is a plan, I think there's a lot of creativity and opportunity there.
That was a lot of work in a short time. And I think gives us a really good basis to keep thinking together and to move forward into future meetings. So thank you all so much. Sorry we took a little extra of your time. It seemed worth it. So our next meeting is, I think, are we set? It's October 27th, which is a Monday. We had to move it because of the holiday, so we moved it back a week. That also gives Dream a little bit more time to crunch the data and be able to come to you with information from what the community has said on the survey questions.
Our last meeting is November 10th, is that right?
We have that, our next meeting is November 10th. If we need a final meeting, we can do it the following week, which is the 17th. So the 10th would be to talk through options. And then the 17th would be if we need more time.
Now,
Great,
what do
thanks
we
everyone.
need to do?